So my name is Kevin Dawson. I'm running for Oklahoma Democratic Party State Chair. This is Stacy Hayes. She's running as Vice Chair, and we are running on a slate together. And really, folks, what we're here to talk about is what our campaign is about. And we've got to start by asking some questions. Do you guys know where we are in regards to our state party right now? Did you know that our state party in the last 6 years, we've gone from, we've lost 110,000 people, registered voters, registered Democrats. We've lost them. That's 15% of our entire voting population of Democrats. We've gone from we've lost 5 House of Representatives members. We've lost 1 Senate member. We're at a point right now where we've got a chair who is what I consider to be a top-down leader. So let me give you a little bit of information about who I am, my background. I worked for 43 years as a locomotive engineer. I spent most of my time on trains, driving trains. But while I was doing that, so I split part of my time in half there because not all of those 43 years was all driving trains. Part of that I went into management. So while I was in management, I went back to school and I got my associate's degree, I got my bachelor's degree, and I got my master's degree. Both of those are in leadership from the University of Oklahoma. So when I talk about leadership skills, I'm talking from an educated point of view. My leadership style, my leadership skills are based on having a servant leader. I want to be that servant leader, not a person who puts their thumb on somebody and micromanages what they do, or a top-down leader who starts at the top and works their way down. We got to start at the bottom and work our way up. That's what a servant leader really is about. And that's my style. That's what I really enjoy. So for 23 years, I worked in management. I worked on both sides of the union agreement. So when I was an agreement employee, I was a union steward. I worked for the United Transportation Union. I stood up the local, and I was reelected each term from 1980 until 1992. When I moved down to Chickasha, Oklahoma, I had to change unions. I went from the United Transportation Union, I went over to the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. One of them was AFL-CIO with the UTU, the other one is Teamsters. So I still belong to the Teamsters Union. Very strong union man. I really believe in the working class values. That's what I've done all of my life. I grew up in rural Kansas, and then I spent most of my time down in Chickasha, Oklahoma. It doesn't get much more rural than that. So, I have those working class rural roots that I live by. And so to bring it back to where I'm at right now, I have, like I said, I've worked on both sides of the union table. Not only was I upholding the agreements on one side, but I was still upholding the agreements on the other side, making sure that we complied with the union agreement and never were in violation of it. I've never been written up for violation of any union contracts when I was in management. There was a lot of contentious things that we had to do. Both of them dealt with negotiations. I've negotiated mergers with Union Pacific Railroad, with Katy Railroad, with the Western Pacific Railroad, with the CN&W Railroad, and with the SP. I've been on the other side of the table where I've negotiated with people about upholding their own contract and living within their contract, and some people went astray of that, and I had to hold them accountable, particularly people that were under something very critical in nature that may involve them not being able to work for the railroad anymore. But either way I went, I made sure that we were upholding the contract all the way. That is where I'm talking about. I'm strong, very strong. Everything I do is about union and supporting the unions and supporting the working people in this state. That brings me back to running for office. When I started looking, leading up to the election this last time, and then after the election was over with, and I seen how our state party just went away. From November until January, we got maybe one email from them during that entire time. I was very discouraged about that because basically I felt abandoned and I was looking for leadership and we didn't get it. Our leaders failed us. So from that, I started talking to a few people. Next thing I know, I'm getting people calling me from all over the state. Kevin, will you please run for state chair? I had a podcast right after when I no longer worked for the railroad. I started a podcast called Coffee with Democrats, where I would interview people who are running for office and current legislators, not only in Oklahoma, but in all 50 states. We had, there was times where I'd have several hundred people on the podcast listening to us live, and in most cases, several hundred people beyond that who would listen to the taped or the recording of it. I've interviewed, hundreds of guests and tens of thousands of people, an audience of tens of thousands of people. I ran for delegate to represent our district. So I ran as a county delegate for Cleveland County first. I was successful in that. So we went to the district level a few weeks later, and I asked to be a delegate at the district level. Then we went to the state. Well, it made sense. I want to be a state delegate to the national convention, to the DNC. I've got the means to do it. Let's get it done. So I ran and I won the state delegate position for the DNC, and I was able to go this last August to the DNC convention up in Chicago. Wonderful experience, absolutely great experience. Throughout all that time, I've been to several of our state conventions, and I've been able to meet first, one-on-one with Ken Martin, face-to-face at one of our conventions, and then he came on as a guest on Coffee with Democrats. So I got to know Ken. I'm not saying I'm friends. Don't get me construed there, but he, yeah, I know him and he knows me. And so one of the things that I kept asking Ken about Oklahoma, why are we focused on these, blue wall states, in these states that only matter for the president? In places like Oklahoma, we're surrendering the entire state to the Republicans. Why are we doing that? Why don't we have a 50-state strategy, something that will help all 50 states? I asked him that. He didn't have an answer to it except I'm here. Well, when he came back onto my show, he said, you know what, Kevin, I've thought about what you asked me, and I think you're onto something. So from that, I knew that he was running for the DNC chair. He wants to, he wanted to be the chair. The election was going to be in February. I announced sometime late in January that I was running for the state chair. So I started seeing what his plan was and what he was running on, and it was exactly what he and I had talked about before. And when I was putting together my strategy on what I wanted to do, I wanted to have a 77 county plan where we stand up all 77 counties and make sure that we have a county party in all 77 counties, because we were down to 33 counties that were the only ones that were stood up. We've got to stand up for those people. And I started realizing, what's going on in the state of Oklahoma? People don't trust our leadership. They see no value in our leadership. We don't hear from our leadership on the news, except very little. And it's always kind of, I hate to say it this way, but it's about whatever's best for the current chair, not about doing things for the party or growing the party. And part of my plan was, we've got to have a chair that is willing to go in front of the news media and talk about our plan on a regular basis. Who here is sick and tired of that other party defining who we are?
Right, definitely.
I have news media training. When I worked in public safety with management, they sent me to public safety training, and I worked on the news media, on trains, teaching the news media about safety. And we did this in Southern Illinois, where we turned a place where we had so many violations and so many deaths and injuries and accidents. We turned that around where we didn't have any in just 2 years. That's the kind of motivation that people, they want that motivation. They want to hear, why is there a problem with what's going on with railroad? People here in the state, they want to know, what are you doing to help support me and help support me as a Democrat? They need to hear that validation on the news media. They need to hear that validation from me on video on a regular basis. They need to see us working as a team and not working as one person, kind of as a show job. This isn't a show job to me. This is actually getting in the dirt and actually shoveling with everybody else, because we've got to dig ourselves out. It's no longer acceptable for us to be in the political wasteland. We've got to get back out of the political wasteland and get back into the political arena where we can actually compete with the other parties. We've been out-registered by the Republican Party far too long. And now we're being out-registered by independents. Most of those independents, they're going to be independents because they don't trust our leadership. Let's give them some hope. Let's give them a new leadership who can actually engage with them and talk the language that they want to hear. Because if you're talking down to people all the time, they're going to back away from you and leave. I think that's what is going on. We've got to change people by being with people. And that's what we have planned. When I asked Stacy to please run with me, because I don't know of a smarter person. I just think that she is just an amazing individual. She is so intelligent. She has so many great ideas. And with her IT background, I asked her numerous times, and she said, no, I don't want to do it. But I kept asking her over and over again. And she started telling me, said, these are the ideas that what I want to do. While she was telling me those ideas, I had the job description of what the vice chair was. And everything that she said was on that vice chair responsibilities. And I said, Stacy, please, everything you're saying is the same thing you would be doing as a vice chair. But I don't want you to be that token chairperson that, like we currently have, that person is a bank president or attorney or whatever. And it's just that it's just an ineffective position. I want you to come on board and actually work with me hand in hand every day to make sure that we can actually grow this. Now, she's got a job. She's going to have to maintain that job. So it's not going to be full-time for her, but it's going to be full-time enough. And she has got so many great ideas. And she's helped me so well with all of our everything that we've put together. So she took my strategy, my 7-point plan, my strategic plan. She renamed it and called it our roadmap to success. And she refined it. She is excellent at refining this and putting it in words that people want to read. And she's with her IT background and with her training background of training other people, she's going to make an outstanding vice chair. She won't be that celebrity who is, from the rich neighborhood. She is one of us. She's blue collar. She lives on a farm, so she's very rural. So she knows the hardships that all of us feel when we're out here in Oklahoma. So I'm going to turn it over to Stacy to talk about what her ideas were for us, and then I'll finish up in just a little bit with some more ideas.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So my name is Stacy Hayes. I am running for vice chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party on the slate with Kevin Dawson. As he mentioned, I am from rural. I'm in CD3. I live in Logan County, which is just north of Oklahoma County. I was a chair for 2 cycles from 2018 all the way through 4 years after that, 2022, and then I became the vice chair. I did a Wilma. I just kind of stepped back for a minute. So I am intimately familiar with how there's roadblocks that are as a county chair, with infrastructure and how to get people trained and how to get people active. So I'm intimately familiar with that. My background is, for my main job, I am in healthcare IT. So I'm not sure around here, but in Oklahoma City, Tulsa area, there's a software system in there that the doctors type on while they're seeing you in the room. That's what I work on. Part of that work is a lot of training. So I train doctors how to use the system. I also do workflow analysis where I, go in there and we translate what they do on the computer into real life. So that's my background. And like you said, whenever I looked at the vice chair position, most of that is training. You're responsible for training counties. You're responsible for getting the candidate training up. And I felt that we could tighten that up a little bit better. So I decided to go ahead and run. What he's talking about with our roadmap to success, I think what sets us apart right now is we have a strategy. We don't have a bunch of tactics and ideas, but it's all wrapped up into a strategy. We have a solid 2-year strategy when we would be in office. We've also scaled that out to 10 years.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we have a 10-year, year-over-year strategy that the next people coming in can continue and build upon the work that we've already done. The part we're talking about today is our roadmap to success. And if you have the flyer, I'm sorry, I walked off in the car and left them in there, but you have a digital copy of it in the email that I sent you all. It's called our roadmap to success. It's on the back of that flyer. The first thing we want to talk about is building party infrastructure. This is growing our membership and our visibility. Like Kevin said, we've lost a number of members. And we saw that during the presidential election, there were a lot of people on social media, they call themselves blue dots, who did not know that they had neighbors that were also Democrats. So we're out here on these islands and nobody knows that each other exists. And it's really a big deal. It's like, oh my God, it's a family reunion on social media when they find out that there are other Democrats around them. So we want to focus on growing that membership and our visibility. We've committed to go into all 77 counties and having events. So this would be something that's like in the public square, ice cream social, hot dog, cookout, something to where everybody can come into a central location and be around like-minded people. We also want to strengthen our precincts and our county parties. Another thing that sets us apart is we are laser focused on getting our precincts built up. Because like we were talking about earlier, we can do voter registration, we can do candidate searching, we can have candidates run. But if you're building this on a shifting foundation, which is our precincts, it's for nothing. None of this works if our precincts aren't set up.
Right.
So we've got to get back in there and help our precinct officers do their job. Because when we're explaining right now to what a precinct officer does, I see a lot of blank looks. And it's valid. It's valid. So we need to make sure that they know how to use VAN, how to contact people, that we have the method for them to reach out to their precinct people. Because some of them, they're not that large. My precinct, I've only got 50 people in mine. It's doable with one person. Some of our larger precincts, what we want to do is make sure they have the tools, the templates, and the infrastructure and the technology to get in touch with these people. Because, we could go back and say what if, but what if our precincts were stood up for past elections?
Right.
What if we have precinct officers in place to say, hey, today is election day. Polls close in 2 minutes. What our legislature look like if we had our precincts stood up? We also want to revitalize the County Chairs Association. Before, we've had a mechanism where all of our county chairs could come together, because I'm very against silos. So we have 77 independent operating counties, and there's things that cross borders, and we need to get together and share those ideas. We also want to make sure we're launching fundraising programs, because these things do cost money. So this is not only our large donors, but we also want to create that small donor program to make sure that we have money coming in at the grassroots level to fund these programs. So that's party infrastructure. Next thing is electing Democrats. That's our number one goal. We need to recruit and support candidates at all levels. Goes back to our party infrastructure. We've got to have those set up. But what we really need to focus on is developing that pipeline, that bench. So what we want to do is work with the young Dems and make sure we train our county officers, because you're on the ground here. You see the leaders in your community. what am I supposed to be asking them? How do I identify them? How do I talk them into it? How many times do I have to ask them? It's 7 times, I'm gonna tell you. It's 7 times. You gotta ask them 7 times. And get that pipeline built up so that we know when filing dates are so they don't come up and surprise us. And we get people on the ballot. And we're just gonna have to, get that program stood up. So that's electing Democrats. Communication and outreach. I listen to a lot of pundits. I listen to everybody after the November election, and the 2 things that they agree on is that our messaging is terrible and we're not listening to the working class. So as far as communication and outreach, just like the DNC, we want to have a war room that we are combating the disinformation as it comes out. But we don't always want to be on our back foot. We want to go on offense and have a messaging calendar where we're pushing out our message. And with that calendar, then we can also get all the counties to come in and push the same message. We're pushing out a statewide message so that we're not always at the behest of whatever they want to talk about that day. Because let me tell you, it's something every day. Every day. But what we are hearing from people are what they're saying is, what are you for? Not just what are you against, what are you for? So our messaging calendar will take care of that issue. Next is be the party of the working class. Like I said, it's those 2 things that people have an issue with. Being a party of the working class. The working class, I believe, I will venture to say they're the biggest demographic that are leaving the Democratic Party.
Right.
Because we're not talking about issues that are valid and impacting them. So as we're going out, we're talking to people and we're asking them, what are you talking about at night? What's keeping you up at night? What do you care about coming out of the legislature? And those are the things that we need to put into our communication message and the impacts of what, I heard him called 45 plus 2. I don't know. We're just making up all kind of names for him. So all the implications of that administration right now, how is this impacting farmers? How is this impacting small businesses with tariffs? Those are the type of things that we need to make sure that we're putting out in front of people. Because there are a lot of disaffected Republicans that will be looking for a home. And they're going to see our message and say, that's right. I'm now paying 30% more for my stuff at Walmart. And it's not in my budget. So those type of things. And like Kevin said, he is part of a union. We are supporting unions. We will advocate for fair wages and back pro-worker legislation. So we're not trying to bust unions. We're trying to make sure that our unions are stood up, that we can get them connected with the legislators to do that pro-worker legislation. Last 3, empower voices for justice. We have federations. We have the Women's Federation. We have the Native American, African American, Stonewall. Veterans. I forget.
Teachers, I think, is another, or education.
Oh, yeah. No, not education.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, teachers you don't count on. You don't.
Yes.
They talk one way and they vote the other way. They don't vote in their best
I'm a
interest.
retired teacher here.
I know.
I know, but I'm
No, you're right.
talking
No,
large
there's a
schools
lot
across
of
the
them who
state.
would not vote against on their best interest. You're
They
right.
don't.
They do not. And I am hopeful that with Ryan Walters saying that he may throw his. So on our federations, we have those that are representing our marginalized communities. So what we want to do is use those federations to not only identify the issues, but to amplify the issues and the messaging that needs to come out of them. Because Kevin and I can't speak for all of those. So we want to just make sure that they're in front of the right people, we're hearing from the right people, and we get to act on what they're saying.
I wonder, is this a time for questions?
Yes, go ahead.
But there's got to be a way that we can let people know we are just as religious as the Republicans.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely,
I'm sorry,
absolutely,
we
yes.
are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's what people think, is that if you're religious, you've got to go to Republicans.
Exactly.
That's where we failed in messaging.
I
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
And
but
it's so frustrating.
yeah,
Religion, we also own guns.
Right.
Yes.
We do.
Right.
We want common sense.
Yeah.
And they get kind of, they'll argue about what common sense means, but the fact is that, we go to church, we own a gun,
Yes.
and what else do they do? We own businesses.
Right.
Like, we
Yeah.
want to be able
We
to pay
want-
our bills.
Right.
We enjoy our capitalism, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
that is the society that we work within, and it works good, you know, having free markets is a great place. And those are all common ground that we can have with Republicans.
But we are up against a propaganda machine.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
And-
and we haven't put out our propaganda.
Yeah,
We
well,
need
and
to-
same thing with women's rights.
Yes.
You know, the majority of Republicans want to see equal rights for women too, and
Yeah.
them being able to decide their own healthcare decisions. So, you know, those those four things, guns, LGBTQ rights, pathway to citizenship, and women's rights, all are 60 to 70% of the entire population across the United States.
Yeah. And we just have to get our messaging out to combat the disinformation. And
Yes.
it's going to take a while to get that turned around, because I tell people they are KGB level propaganda.
Yes, yeah.
And we've got a lot of work to do.
Been too complacent.
We've been
And
too
that
complacent.
goes with our war room. Our war room that we want to stand up is the place where we are going to have, we're not going to just respond to everything that they say, but we're going to start putting stuff out there that's going to put them on their back foot.
Make them respond.
That's right. That's right. And you know, one thing that they're going after right now, they don't even know that they're going after, is our own Constitution. We're going to attack them on that. We're going to attack them back on democracy and what actually democracy means, because that doesn't mean following people that want to destroy it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we're
Yeah.
going to talk about, and I need
No,
to
that's
get.
fine.
If you really want to do something, you need to win something.
Yeah.
If you don't win something, these young people,
Yeah.
they're not going to follow you anywhere.
Right. I agree with you.
They grew up winners.
Yeah.
The Democrat Party had done nothing but fall behind, because what do you hear every time after the election? Republican.
Republican.
Yeah.
Republican. But if you don't win nothing, they're not gonna give you the time of day.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to pick something. We got some good candidates, but they always wanna reach up here
Right.
when they ought to be reaching down here.
Yeah.
Because they could win down here, but I wanna be a US congressman.
Yeah.
I wanna be a senator,
Right. Right.
when they need to be down here.
Working their way up as
So
a
we're talking about like
citizen,
municipal and then
county.
County.
And, yeah.
They need
Yeah.
to win something down here before they move up here.
that's a good point. That's a good
But
point.
the deal is, we need to win something. We need, and there's 2 districts in this whole state that we could win, and that is 1 and 5.
Yeah.
The other 3, we could not win right now because they're spread out so much.
Right.
Republicans own that, but
I agree
1
with you.
and 5 is the 2 that if we want to win. Those
Yeah.
are the 2, and bring everybody else in.
That's
you
what-
got you got to give up on something sometime if you want to win over here.
You're right. You're right. I describe it as a swarm. So we all need to swarm to 5. We
And
need
you
to
bring
swarm to
your money
1.
there, and you
Bring the money there.
people that are knocking on doors, and you got to put it to them. Next time we'll look at 2.
Yes.
Next time we'll look at 5. I mean 4. But right now, can you win a state level seat? I don't think governor right now or a vice governor, but can you win a seat down here somewhere? Have you got the person to do it?
We do believe that we have a person running for governor that can win. So I'm supporting Cindy Munson right now. However, if there's another Democrat who wants to run that may be equal or stronger, I'm going to support both of them. But because we're going to stay neutral all the way through the primary. But the idea is we need to consider putting a person in every single seat, no matter what. Because guess what? If you go to the polls down here and there's not even a Democrat option, that's just as demeaning as losing.
Yes.
Well, we said, we ran a guy here about, 4 years ago, Jim Run?
Yeah,
Jim Run, and Jim raised $22,000.
yeah,
Talking about Jimmy Haley.
Yeah. There was nobody else who run in the other 3 counties around us. They took their money and dumped it in on our race, and they beat Jimmy bad.
right.
Yeah.
He had to run, get $60-some thousand, and all they did was advertise, they stuck stuff up. Jimmy had $22,000, he's out here running around doing the best he can. money wins races.
It does.
Money
It
wins.
does.
There's no way falling back.
And-
I've looked at it over years. Money wins races, but till you win something, you're not going to get these young people to look at you.
And I'll address that here in just a
Yes.
minute. Let's let her finish, and then I'll address some
Well,
more.
y'all been, I want to tell you right now, you done went past where young people be listening to you.
Yeah, I
You're right.
understand.
I know how long their attention spans are. So go ahead. I'll
So
let
we
you-
want to work with Democratic leaders also, because what we found is that once they get to the Capitol, we don't have that two-way conversation anymore. So we need to talk to them about policy that we want them to run. We need to talk to them about laws that we want them to bring forth. And then what we also want to commit to do is assigning a staff and elected officials to support them. And basically what that means is, you know, we've got 8 people in the Senate, we've got 20 people in the House. Their bills are getting killed in committee. So whenever their bills come out, what we want to do is send up kind of a flare to say, Oklahoma, call your local senator, call your local representative, and say, I want this bill heard. I
Right.
want this bill to get out of committee. We're going to have to swarm.
Right.
Because right now in Oklahoma, we have the most rural person that we have. She's in CD3, but she covers Stillwater proper.
Right.
We have no one in the rural areas right now. So we're going to have to support the folks that are out there right now to get their bills through,
Right.
because they keep getting killed in committee. Our last thing is to establish a permanent campaign. So that just means that we want to get those precincts. Don't just talk to them during election time. Hit them 2 or 3 times throughout the year, so we make sure that we still understand what they're concerned with. And the last thing is to create that 10-year strategy plan. Like you said, we're doing the 2 years that we're in there. SMART goals, meaning there's numbers to hit. There's fundraising goals to be in there. There's voter registration numbers in there. But what we want to do is expand that out to 10 years so that the next folks can come in there, and we're not starting over every 2 years. It's a year-over-year strategy. And in that strategy, we're talking about getting state-level candidates. Because can we do it in 2026? Yes, we can. Will they win? It's going to be a struggle, but we're talking 28, 32, 36. Let's look out to make sure that, number one, we're getting that bench built up so that we've got people ready to go when it's time to go. And we've got to think fundraising, because it's going to take money. We've got to think that these are working class people. How are they going to be a candidate? They can't take off work and campaign for 2 years.
Right.
We've got to fill gaps, and we have to understand what it takes for real to get a candidate up to run. So that's our roadmap to success. Questions on that?
Like I said, you gotta win.
We got to win something. We got to win something.
You gotta win something, 'cause that way, cause so tired of seeing that when they start rolling it down and all you see is ours there. And it's just a red wave. You gotta put a blue dot somewhere here.
So we've talked
Make people
about,
go.
making sure that we're running in viable areas. And what I mean by viable is, how many points between the Republican and the Democrat vote? Like, are we shifting in points? Are we within 5 or 6 points of the Republican vote, or are we within 20 points? Where we're 20 points, probably not going to win there, probably not somewhere where we want to dump our money. But if we're looking for somebody that's almost purple, like you said, 5,
Just like Avery Fritz this last time.
Uh-huh.
Avery Fritz was our representative.
mm-hmm,
Muskogee, they had a Senate seat come open. All he did was walk up and sign his name.
yeah.
No Democrat signed for it.
Right.
Avery got it without a runoff, without anything.
Just walked right
He just
into it.
walked right into it.
Yep.
And the same is true with John Waldron as a Democrat. He walks into his the same way. So it happens on both sides of the aisle. We know that happens. But let me finish by, we'll finish up here just to talk a little bit about our campaign. So several more reasons we got to think about where we're going and what we want to do with our current leadership. Do you want to have a full-time chair, or do you want to have a part-time chair? Do you want to have a chair or do you want to have a chair that has a record of the same thing that we're doing right now? Just whitewash what we do the same thing all over again. We're not going to do that. We're going to bring a strategy, and we went into extreme detail with you guys. We normally don't go in this deep of detail, but we do want you guys to know that we do have a strategic plan. It's not tactical in nature, that we are actually thinking forward on this. And we're doing things in everything that we're doing to win elections. That, what you bring up a good point, it is a good point. We've got to think about that, and we've got to have a strategy in place to make it happen. And that's what our strategy is designed to do. And it also has that part of it that is built into it, plan, do, check, and adjust. So if it ain't working, we're going to fix it. And but that being said, we still got some things to overcome. You know, we've got 630,000 registered Democrats in the state of Oklahoma. Most cases on our statewide elections, they're only won by 100 and so thousand votes, 130,000 votes. All we got to do is get that 630,000 people activated to do something. Of those 630,000, you know how many of them are actually participating in the last election? 19%.
It's terrible.
120,000 people is all that got activated in this last election. That's a failure of leadership,
We
folks.
just ran a city election here, and I was helping one of my councilmen run. We had 340 people turn up out of 3,300.
Right, 10% of the population is all that wants to vote.
Turnout was important enough. Now, they'll tell you this year, they have been voted to death, because this is the last election day. They feel like, because I was out there walking, well, I voted already. I just voted twice this year.
Well, there was an election on the books every month this year.
Yeah.
So people got wore out. They did. I'm gonna tell you now, it's bad to think that you're asking so much of them to walk into a booth for 5 minutes and walk back out the door. You know, it's act like you're really pulling their teeth.
Yes.
But understand this. It's just as hard for the Republicans as it is for us. So we've got to work on that,
Yes.
that 480,000 people who aren't participating right now. We've got to get those people activated. If we just get 10% of those people, that 480,000 people, if we get them activated and then ask them to give $1, just $1 per month for an entire year, they've paid for our entire office staff and our office to stay open. Just $1 out of 48,000 people, 10% of the people who are already registered Democrats. That's all we're asking for. We can stand up more than that. We can ask for more than that because people are willing to do it, because people are pissed off. Let me ask you a couple of questions here. And remember this, the answer to all these questions is always Democrats, okay? So you know the answer. Who do you trust with your Social Security?
I know.
Yeah, Democrats. Who do you trust with your Medicare? Democrats. Who do you trust with your Medicaid? Democrats. Who do you trust with your other retirement programs? Democrats. Who do you trust with your VA? Democrats. Yeah. So that other party doesn't have a damn answer for anything that we're bringing up. The only thing they want to do is tear it down and take it away. People are not going to accept that. Those things that I just talked about are things that all of us grew up with. It's been around our entire life. Those things have got to stay. They're fundamental to our way of life. And so with that in mind, and even the other thing is that I want to bring up is healthcare. Because look at all the healthcare deserts in the state of Oklahoma. Places where we had hospitals and clinics that have already closed down. Yeah, so we've got these healthcare deserts. And who caused that? The Republican Party. So let me ask you another question. Let's think about this. When it comes to, the Republican Party, they want to control the will of the people. The Democrats want to do the will of the people. That's the message that we got to constantly be telling people is we've got to focus on that. The Republicans want to control the will of the people. They want to take everything away from people. They want to take away women's rights. They want to take away anybody's ability to make any changes out here, especially when it comes to statewide initiatives, citizen-led initiatives. They want to take that completely away from our citizens. Those things are those are fundamental things that the Republican Party wants to completely destroy and take away from. But the Democrats want to do the will of the people. We have done the will of the people in the state of Oklahoma to the point where the people have said, all right, we want to try something else. And now we've been gerrymandered completely out of the message. We're going to have to try to work within that gerrymandered system But the best way to do it is to reach people face to face, eyeball to eyeball. We are not going to convince people to do things over the television. We're not going to be able to convince people to do things in a little write-up in the newspaper. I have got to spend my time on the road, constantly talking to people and focusing on young people as well. Not just people with the gray hair or gray beard like I have, but talking to everybody out here and focusing on their problems and convincing them that surrendering their liberties is not the way of the future. They are surrendering their rights. Do they want to continue to surrender their rights to the point where they don't have anything left? We have got to stand up, and we've got to stand up as citizens. And our only way to fight back right now in this war against people by the Republican Party, our way of fighting back is at the polls. We've got to get people encouraged to go to the polls. We've got to think about going to the polls the same way we do when we go down on Friday night to watch our high school play ball, or on Saturday to watch the university play ball. We've got to think about our candidates the same way as we do those football players. When those football players are out on the field and they're struggling, do you stop cheering because you can't be heard because everybody else is cheering around you? No. You cheer just as loud because you support the team. We got to consider the same thing. When our team members are in there and they're working their butt off to be elected to represent you and affect your day-to-day life, that is the real champion, not the football player who does nothing for you. The real champion is the person that is working for you on your behalf in government. So we've got to make sure that people understand where their values are, and the people of this state understand that, but they haven't had the voice that's been out there to talk to them and encourage them. That is going to be my total focus, is to encourage people, to stand them up. Don't talk down to them. Don't try to build this building by building the windows first and then build the foundation underneath of it. We got to build a firm foundation before we can put the windows in. You know what I'm saying? So we've got to work on this together. So folks, my name's Kevin Dawson. This is Stacey Hayes. We're running as chair and vice chair for the Oklahoma Democratic Party. We are asking for your vote at the state election on June 28th and 29th.
Thank you.
Thank you.